This is the 217 Recovery Podcast with Corey Winfield.
And yeah, it was hell when he would go in there and go through detox, but I didn't care because I knew he needed to and I didn't want him to die. But maybe he wanted to die, but I'd heard him say enough times when he was sober that he didn't want to die.
Nuh-uh.
Nuh-uh.
3rd of November, 2020. This is the 217 Recovery Podcast. My name is Corey Winfield, which, by the way, is a rich person's name, and I should be a billionaire. In the studio with me, Marney Liston.
Hey there.
Marney, welcome.
Thank you.
If you're just tuning in, this is your first podcast ever. We are 100% professional. We take everything very serious, and we come at recovery with a doctor's approach. Just kidding. We're not doctors. We joke. We joke a lot. And I listened to a podcast today when I was transporting somebody. And most of the time, like 30 minutes in before we start talking about recovery, it was from January. And there was things that I still say to this day. You know, one of them was, well, now we're 30 minutes in. Let's get to some recovery. And that's just kind of a light way to kind of get to it. And, you know, yeah, we talk recovery and we're serious about recovery, but we also like to have fun in recovery. So if this is your first podcast, welcome. I know the app has been introduced to many people around Earth and in Michigan. So this is, again, your first podcast. Welcome. It was brought to me today. Actually, it was brought to my attention about the power of relapse. You know, that was actually a topic that somebody requested. And I was actually thinking about that earlier. I was talking with the guy who I was transporting and was talking about how there was a time in his life where he was in a place that he thought he had it. And he was like, Corey, you know, I really thought that this time was different, and it wasn't. And it's not that it's false hope. It's just when you're in a place and things are going good and you're doing the things you need to, and then you stop doing those things. Again, things you need to, not that you want to, but things that you need to. And eventually you'll change your mind into want to do those things. But like, say if you know, you're doing great. You know, you got 3-4 months clean and hell, even a year clean. And, you know, you're going to meetings all the time and say you move and then you move to a different place and you're like, well, you know, I don't really know where the meetings are at. And you just become lackadaisical, I guess you could say. You know, you're just like, well, I don't really need a meeting. And, you know, I'm going to one this Sunday, and then Sunday comes, you don't go. Or, you know, you start doing those things that you need to do. And you start thinking that those are things you want to do. Like, oh, you know, I'll go to one later. But no, you need to go to meetings. You need to keep on whatever you were doing that had you going in such a successful direction. Because you start taking those things away, man, it's just not good. Mm-hmm. You know, the power of the relapse is a monster. I had to deal with that yesterday, matter of fact. I was going through it, a tough one. And I mean, I could feel like it wasn't really thoughts of, man, you should go drink. But if I didn't go I had 2 meetings yesterday. I had an AA and an NA meeting. And they were back to back, which was really cool. But if I didn't go do that, that's something that I needed to do. Now, I could have just been like, you know, I'm not drinking today. But that could have been a start to something. That could have planted a seed where I went to the meeting. I felt better, you know. That's what they're for. And I'm glad I went. And like I said, I needed to. And it was like a feeling of, again, not like thinking about it, but I don't even know how to explain the feeling. Like, it's just like, oh, this old familiar frustrated feeling. Like, oh, yeah, you know, and I needed to squash it. Mm-hmm. And better safe than sorry. You know, did I have to drive an hour and a half to go to this meeting? No. I probably could have found one closer, but I like to drive, and I don't know. It wasn't bad. It was nice and sunny. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I didn't want the power of the relapse to, like, take over. And it starts with just little situations like that. Like, if I would have just, well, whatever, I'm just going to focus on some work, or I'm going to, you know, create some stuff for the website. Or, I mean, I could have used a, what do they call it? Oh, I'm so tired. I can't even think. The coping skill. I could have used a coping skill and designed some logos or something, but I wouldn't have dealt with the problem. I wouldn't have had it out there front and center. And I don't know. I'm just glad I got ahead of it. And looking back at it now, you know, absolutely, I needed to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Relapses are sneaky. Relapses are sneaky and tricky. Mm-hmm. And I mean, especially like you were saying, if you're feeling some kind of way and, you know, you're out of your routine, or, you know, something happens and, you know, you don't deal with it, you might not drink right at that moment, but if you don't kind of address it head on and go to a meeting or talk to somebody about it, you know, get it out in the open, those feelings will, you know, they'll stick with you, and something small might happen, and then, you know, you're off to the races and you don't even know what happened. So
it builds up like shower scum.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't clean it every once in a while, it's just going to be layers and layers and layers, and before you know it, toenails falling off or whatever happens if you do that stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, in hindsight, when I think about, like, I mean, I've had a lot of relapses, but there's some where, you know, I can feel it coming on. I could feel myself slipping, you know, like almost like not today, but, you know, I don't know what, you know, and it's that obsession. You know, it's a disease, and it'll get to you. And so if I would have probably gone and talked about it to somebody, you know, at least opened my mouth and said, like, I'm thinking about this. Why am I thinking about this? So, you know, I need to get this off my brain and not have it just sit there and linger and fester and trip me up like that. Because I failed multiple times because I didn't talk about it, and I didn't, you know, bring it up.
Did you ever blame people? That was my thing.
Oh, I blamed anything and everything. Every time I relapsed, it was never just my fault. It was always something. It was somebody who did something to me, or some place that made me feel some kind of way. And, you know, I had to get past all. I have to get past all that in general. You know, being in recovery and living in sobriety is just that. You know, I've had to accept that I live my life every day without the use of drugs or alcohol. You know, alcohol being a drug, but you know, I had to accept a lot of things. I had to accept that I'm going to deal with it. It's out there in the world, you know, in my face every day. And for a lot of people in the world, it's a normal thing. It's a normal social thing. It exists. And in my world, I can't participate in it. And I have to be okay with that. And for some, you know, and we talk about this a lot, is, you know, getting to that moment in your life where I'm okay with that. And I don't know when it happened exactly. I don't know. I can't tell you exactly when that obsession was lifted, or when that, you know, spiritual awakening, sometimes people call it. Gosh, but I'm grateful.
I think it has to do with, like, you wrote a great blog the other day, and if you haven't read it, you need to, 217recovery.com. You can use the app. P.S. I'm grateful. It's called Get Honest. And the blog was really good. And I actually shared it with a couple people. But it's so right. You know, you have to get honest. And I think you're just talking about you didn't know when it happened, but I think it was when you decided to get honest with yourself. And when you can own your relapse, you know, that's a big step. Then you might think, well, I just relapsed. Yeah, but can you own it? can you not blame it on somebody else? And sometimes, we do this, at least I did, to hurt them back, because I had 4 months of sobriety, and you know what, because they did this, then I drank, and it's their fault, and they're going to hurt. Well, newsflash, they don't hurt.
Yeah, nobody makes you relapse.
You hurt, and you look foolish.
Yeah. And
nobody else cares. No, well, I mean, somebody might care, but I mean, that person that you're going to get back at and hurt, teach them, and look, it's their fault, and they're going to feel so sad, and they're going to feel like all this is their fault. No, they're not. No, they're going to eat ice cream and pizza and move on with their day and go, yep, did it again. Knew that was going to happen. You got to stand up and you got to own it, and you have to get honest with yourself and go, look, first of all, that's very childish. But sometimes, addiction, it has us in a place, it messes with our brain chemistry, so we're not thinking clear. I've heard it takes up to 5 years for you to kind of get all the stuff out of your brain and to actually think again and be clear. But so it might be childish, sure, but that's kind of what drugs do. I mean, how many childish things did I do when I was drinking? Oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't even want to remember any of them really, but tons of them. So it's childish to be in that kind of, well, I'll teach them and they're going to hurt because they're going to feel sorry because they're the one who caused this relapse because they did this and that. No, man, you're the one who controls how you feel. It could be just the alcohol or the drug just playing games with you, like, the addiction playing games with you. It's the power of the relapse, man. Yeah. It'll sound like a great idea, and we'll show them or we'll teach them, and like I said, ultimately you're just hurting yourself. You're setting yourself back.
Mm-hmm. And the other lie that we tell ourselves all the time when you're talking about the power of the relapse is when you're almost talking yourself into it, because you'll rationalize like, well, it's only going to be, I'll only do it once, just this once. Or just this one weekend, or just this 1 week, and whether people know or don't know, that's irrelevant, because it never ends up being that. It never ends up being that. No. And it's that whole planning for a vacation. I'm just going to drink on my vacation, and then when I get back, it's back to the grindstone.
Yeah, I deserve it.
It is never. That never happens, and also, I think, too, is reminding yourself, whether it doesn't have to be at meetings. It doesn't have to, sometimes some people, meetings isn't their thing. But is almost preparing yourself and reminding yourself, like, life is going to happen. You're going to get curveballs. Even before they happen. Could be little, could be big. But going back out is not the answer.
Yeah, but I'm different. Just like everybody else. That's one of my favorite things. And I used to think that too. I'm like, yeah, that's everybody else. Everybody else, they need AA. I don't need any of that. No, I can do it. If anybody can do it, it's me. God built me different. I'm smarter. I can do it. Mm-hmm. No, I can't. I found that out so many times the hard way. And you realize after a while, like, it's like I wouldn't go to try to get on a horse because I don't know how to ride one. And I'd fall off, 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 and I'd fall off. And then finally I'll go, you know what? I don't even want to ride that horse anymore. And I think that's kind of where I've come with this, instead of going, hey, maybe I should get a saddle. Okay. And then I put the saddle on, and then what? I don't know how to strap it in, so I still fall off. And I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of like, I'll just drink beer. No, you're still going to fall off. And then what? I'm going to try it again, bareback? No, boom, fall off. I mean, that's a horrible analogy. Keep in mind, by the way, because people do ride horses. So I mean, I don't know, like, but I'm just saying, like, it like Marney said too, it doesn't work, and it's not going to be ever just, oh well, there's just this Friday, and well, I still have a little bit left, so it'll turn into Saturday. I could probably go to the store and get some more. I've only had a couple drinks, and that way Sunday it's football. So that'll be good too. And, Monday I'll call in sick. And then next thing you know, it's Thursday and you're like, I don't even like that job anyway. And it's stupid and I hate it.
Man.
And that job's making me drink because I'm so stressed because that's not what I want to do. And
yeah.
You been there before?
Oh, yeah.